said, make my place of worship such that when the sun rises in the east, it'll shine in my face. Of course, the sun moves, so it's not always shining in its face, but so that the clouds covered, but that seeing the shine on the deity, Gopal, he likes. Wouldn't it be nice to have such a dream where Gopal tells you something? We were discussing this yesterday evening. What's the circumstance under which the personality of Godhead reveals himself?
The switch.
Under what circumstance will the personality of Godhead do such a thing? And there's Katha Upanishad, Prabhupada quotes Katha Upanishad to give the answer, at least one of the answers. The primary answer is when the Lord shows his mercy, that's when one can hear or see or experience him directly. And then the other qualification is bhakti. So it's not just bhakti. The Katha Upanishad verse that Prabhupada sometimes quoted says it's not by this, that, and the other thing. And included in this, that, and the other thing, not only, austerities and sacrifices and stuff, but it's even substantial hearing. Now, our Bhagavad Dharma process is Shravanam. And from that comes everything else. But it's not just by Shravanam. And then Shravanam bears different fruits. And up to the highest stage of Vraja Prem. But in this pastime that we're going to be reading this morning, where the personality of Godhead, Krishna, revealed to the cowherd men his abode of Goloka, because they had that hankering. And why they had that hankering, we'll go back. Chapter 28 comes after chapter 27. And in chapter 27 is Indra and Surabhi offering prayers to Krishna after Indra made his boo-boo and offended Krishna and the Brijvasis, and he offered prayers. So Shukadeva Goswami became ecstatic just thinking about the mistake of one of the demigods, which led him to the next narration. And I'm not sure it's chronological, acharyas don't say, but it's emotionally very logical. Shukadeva Goswami began speaking about the mistake of Varuna, or the assistant of Varuna. And when assistants makes mistakes, the credit goes to, the discredit goes to the person who they're serving. So the representative of Varuna kidnapped Nanda Maharaj with a wrong understanding. Nanda Maharaj was right, and the agent of Varuna was wrong on many accounts, but even in terms of technicality. So he was taken to the abode of Varuna. Krishna went to rescue Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj saw two things: the opulence of the heavenly realm, and that all opulent Varuna and his associates worshipped Krishna, the second thing. Nanda was entrusted to Krishna. Krishna went back. It was still the Dwadasi morning. They observed the Dwadasi breaking of the fast from Ekadasi, And then the elders started having this conversation. Who is he? Which came after this other. Who is he after the Govardhan Lila? That's chapter 26. Wonderful Krishna. So here it is, chapter 28, and they're going, who is he? And they accepted he's Narayan, or they accepted he's invested with potencies of Narayan. But in either case, he's Narayan. Will he show us his eternal abode? Because they were thinking of themselves as conditioned souls. So they speak, sojourning through higher and lower species, depending upon karma, and the Lord has now appeared in our village, and the son of Nanda, we have affection for him like our son, our own son. Will he take us to his abode? Will he show us his abode? They didn't say anything to Krishna, but he's omniscient, so he knew, so he decided, I'll show them. And so he showed them. That's our topic. So the commentary says, what was the eligibility? It's not just Braja Prem, they're Braja Prem Vasis. But it's when Krishna decided, then he could see. Of course, Krishna became the son of Nanda, that we were discussing yesterday evening. Krishna became the son of Nanda because he's eternally the son of Nanda. And age after age, yuga after yuga, millennium after millennium, he comes as the son of Nanda. He's eternally Nanda's son, so he has a lila becoming his son. But he does so because of the outstanding love. And then there's all this comparison of others that have love for Krishna and parental affection, and Nanda and Yasoda are the superlative. And regularly, Yasoda is placed even above Nanda Maharaj in different ways, but sometimes Nanda wasn't able to be with Krishna all the time, and Mother Yasoda was with Krishna all the time. And other elders who also had sons Krishna's age, Krishna became their son for 1 year. And Krishna accepted milk from their breast for 1 year, because these were little boys. They were just turned 3 when they began herding the calves. So he's a little boy. Anyway, but they're not the same. Mother Yasoda is superlative. So we're going now back to, so what's the qualification? Eagerness and mercy. Same combination, effort and mercy. Because where there's eagerness, there's effort. Enthusiastic effort. But we're dependent upon mercy. And that's even your Brijvasi, even your Nanda and Yasoda and Cowherd men and whoever you may be, we're dependent. But the intensity of the affection is the superlative feature of the Brijvasis. And Krishna's reciprocates. Oh. I'll just go back, read the last section. Two paragraphs. The verse says, Atmaja Uttane, that is, when the son was born. It does not say Nanda thought of him as a son, therefore the birth of Maya, that's Yogamaya, that was the daughter of Yashoda, The birth of Maya from Yashoda was for deceiving Vasudeva, produced by Krishna's potency. Maya stayed in Yashoda's womb and Krishna stayed in her heart. Thus, because Yashoda was the mother of both children, Maya is called Krishna's younger sister. 10.4.9 Bhagavatam. When Devaki desired that he cover his four-armed form, the two-armed form residing in Yashoda's heart then covered that four-armed form and appeared in front of her. Though Garga Muni says, quote, previously he was born the son of Vasudeva. He resolves the issue by then saying, quote, your son has been born with many forms and names previously. 10.8.15. That is, he was the son of Vasudeva in previous yugas. He didn't disclose all that, he just, little or puzzling words. Thus, Garga's words, as well as Nanda and Yashoda's recognition of Krishna as their son, and the statements of scripture establish that Krishna is principally the son of Nanda and Yashoda. Nanda and Yashoda accepted that Maya was created by Krishna for deception, while Vasudeva and Devaki accepted Maya as Yashoda's real child, and therefore embraced her when Kamsa tried to snatch her away. Paragraph. Fixed in this truth, the couple thought, we will broadcast it as a festival. This is about Krishna's appearance. With the birth of a son, Nanda became joyful. Jata Lada. Not only was the son born, but joy was born. Joy was born on the pretext of the son. It appears spontaneously with the appearance of the son. This indicates the deep nature of their bliss. This became the cause of a great festival. He called the Vipras, those who can excellently fulfill all desires. They were knowledgeable of the birthrights and the rules of the Vedas. Shruti says, all the devatas reside in the Brahmana, having knowledge of the Vedas. Nanda purified himself with Achman and Vaishnav Tilak. He had the Brahmanas chant mantras like Bhuyas Tvapi and performed the ceremony for giving intelligence to his son. Karma Phalam Prayoktari. The result of an action goes to the performer. They performed the ceremonies according to the rules. Vidhina. They then performed worship of the Pitris. Nanda did not perform the Nandi Mukha Shraddha personally, which is the custom, since he was stunned with bliss. They had performed those rites because he was repeatedly stunned. So, this goes now again to this, this is commentary by Jiva Goswami on his 10th canto commentary, speaking on the same what happened after that birth ceremony. The great-minded Maharaj Nanda gave clothing, ornaments, and cows in charity to the cowherd men in order to please Vishnu, and thus he improved the condition of his own son in all respects. He distributed charity to the Sutas, the Magadhas, the Vandis, and men of all other professions according to their educational qualifications, and satisfied everyone's desires. He gave cloth and other items such as gold to the cowherd men and women, to the bards. That was the translation of the verse in Navi's commenting. To the bards, that's the suttas. To the singers and musicians as appropriate. He worshipped them appropriately. He was naturally generous, but now became most devoted. Maha Mana. As previously mentioned, because of his devotion to Krishna, his quality of generosity and his wisdom increased immeasurably. Hint, bhakti decorates one with qualities that are superlative. He was not satisfied with giving, but whatever they desired, he gave. He worshipped them according to caste, age, and knowledge. He respected them with garlands, sandalwood, betel nut, and invitations. The purpose of giving is mentioned. It was for satisfying Vishnu, not for going to Swarga, since he was the highest Vaishnava and had reached the end of desiring any object. He gave for the welfare of his son. May Vishnu be pleased with his charity. May my son be prosperous by his mercy. By worshipping Vishnu, by that prosperity, there would be manifestation of Krishna's form, qualities, and pastimes in his house. Mahamana can also mean that his meditation became great because of developing attraction to Krishna. So all these are just the super excellent qualities of Yashoda and Nanda, and their love for Krishna is superlative. Shukadev Goswami has established the conclusion by the meaning of this verse. For the word cha means upheat, to indicate Nanda's rare position of getting Krishna as his son. This is established in later verses in the same chapter, text 46. Oh, excuse me. That we're reading from 20. Oh, wait a minute. I'm in the wrong section. I'm in chapter 8. Excuse me. That was chapter 8. Okay. Retake. We'll read again what I've just read in the evening, because in the evening it's the super excellence of Yashoda, then now it's super excellence of Nanda and Yashoda. So here is 10:28:16. BBT translation of that verse. The cowherd men were brought by Lord Krishna to the Brahma Radha means lake, made to submerged in water, and then lifted up. From the same vantage point that Akrura saw the spiritual world, the cowherd men saw the planet of the absolute truth. And here's the BBT purport. The unlimited extension of spiritual light, called the Brahmajyoti in text 15, this is text 16, he immersed them, they saw what they saw. He uses the word specifically, Brahmajyoti. There's two meanings. This Brahma Radha can mean figurative lake or literal lake. So both explanations are given. This Brahmajyoti, Brahma Radha, is compared to a lake called Brahma Radha, Lord Krishna submerged the cowherd men in that lake in the sense that he submerged them in the awareness of the impersonal Brahman, but then, as indicated by the word udrita, he lifted them up to a higher understanding. What's that? That of the personality of Godhead in his own planet. Because when they were pondering, the two terms are used, Brahman and Vaikuntha. Because they thought he's Narayan, so his abode is Vaikuntha. They wanted to see Vaikuntha. And they wanted to see Brahman because their understanding was Brahman means spiritual, and so the spiritual realm. Are we okay? We're off again? We have to do something about this microphone.
We're getting differences.
Thank you. Okay. He lifted them up to a higher understanding, that of the personality of Godhead in his own planet. So he showed them Goloka. Although they're in Gokula, and what's the distinction between Goloka and Gokula? Well, it's a subtle distinction. But consistently the acharyas speak, Goloka has sweetness and Aishvarya, and in Gokula, his earthly manifest pastimes, there's even a greater degree of sweetness, or madhurya. And because of that greater degree of madhurya, those who reside there cannot even detect the Aishvarya, although he exhibits it. So they wanted to see, and so he showed that which can only be seen. So the prakat lila, even demons can see, because prakat. They can't understand it, but they can see it. And the aprakat lila, one can only, and abode and form and everything, can only be shown if Krishna reveals it. So they wanted, he's revealing. So he showed. Brahmajyoti, Goloka with his form there. As clearly stated here, Adrashur Brahmano Lokam. They saw, just as Akura did, the transcendental abode of the absolute truth. Paragraph. The evolutionary consciousness the evolution of consciousness may be briefly summarized as follows. A short version. In ordinary consciousness, we perceive and are attracted to the variety of material things. Rising to the first stage of spiritual consciousness, we transcend material variety and focus instead on the undifferentiated one with a capital O, which lies beyond and gives existence to the many. Finally, rising to Krishna consciousness, we find the absolute spiritual one with a capital O contains its own eternal variety. In fact, this world is a mere shadow of the eternal existence. We would expect to find spiritual variety within the one, and indeed we do find it in the sacred text of Srimad Bhagavatam. Astute readers may note that the pastime involving Akura takes place chronologically later in the Bhagavatam, after the present affair with the cowherd men. So they're being immersed in Brahma-Radha. Happens chronologically before Akura takes them, Krishna and Balaram, from Braja to Mathura. The reason Shukadeva Goswami says Akura saw Vaikuntha Pura, previously, Pura means place, abode, is that all these incidents took place many years before this conversation. So though it's not chronological, it's very logical. So now we're going to continue. That's the text. 10:28, 16. What he did, he took them there to see. So now is a commentary from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on 3:25-26. 3:25, that's Kapila Dev teaching devotional service to Devahuti. And here's the verse, 36. To the devotees whose minds and senses have been stolen by the attractive limbs of the Lord, which contain pleasing words, glances, smiles, and pastimes, and which fulfill their desires, Bhakti offers them liberation, though they do not desire it. Commentary. Distaste for merging in Brahman arises from the amazing experience of sweetness from seeing me. The limbs of Krishna, Rama, and other forms are very attractive and possess attractive words, glances, smiles, and pastimes which fulfill the desire of the devotees. Udara. Because their minds and senses are attracted by these things, they do not desire liberation. However, Bhakti bestows liberation. Oh, devotees, please accept liberation in the Brahman. This is uttered, but there is no opportunity to give it because their minds have been stolen by the sweet words, glances, smiles, and pastimes of the Lord. Quote, if that is so, then why does omniscient Bhakti offer it to them in the first place? Answer, the person who can give chintamani, or touchstone, made of valuable diamonds and rubies, sometimes make a show of giving gold. Otherwise, the foolish who desire only gold would cause disturbance by saying that the donor has no gold. Bhakti, in order to destroy foolishness of purported jnanis who desire only liberation, offers liberation to the devotees, but does not really desire to give it to them. That's Vishwanath. Paragraph. Another meaning is, Bhakti makes them have no desire for liberation. Another meaning is that the devotees out of humility do not desire that which is most subtle, beyond Prakriti, most difficult to understand. They do not desire it carefully. The devotees out of humility do not desire that which is most subtle, beyond Prakriti, most difficult to understand. They do not desire even being an associate of the Lord. Devotees often pray, quote, let me stay in the material world birth after birth, but with devotion to you. However, Bhakti makes the devotees take that position of an associate. That is the meaning that Jiva Goswami gives in the Sandarbha. Paragraph. Srila Rupa Goswami says, it means, quote, Bhakti makes the minds of the devotees who do not desire liberation attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. Sridhar Swami says, quote, Bhakti makes them take liberation, though they are without desire for it. Even this explanation is not too unsuitable. It is said, Canto 3, Chapter 32, a single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. I'll read it again. A single object is appreciated differently by different senses due to its having different qualities. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is one, but according to different scriptural injunctions, he appears to be different. Thus, Bhakti could offer liberation before those persons realize full happiness with the Lord. Bhakti forcibly makes them take liberation to experience the happiness of Brahman, though they do not want it. But then the Lord pulls them out of that realization in the same manner that Krishna pulled the inhabitants of Braja out of Brahmarada and put them in the spiritual world. He makes them his associates. He takes them, his associates, in the spiritual world and drowns them internally in the bliss of service. This can be understood from bathing in the meaning of the next verse. This is the opinion of some. Okay, so now we're going to, again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commenting on 10:39, 44 through 45. This is Akrura's vision. 10:39. Krishna's leaving Vrindavan to go to Mathura. Akrura's driving the chariot. And reference to this verse is touched on that commentary. There, Akrura now saw Anantashesh, the lord of the serpents, receiving praise from the Siddhas, Charanas, Gandharvas, and demons, all who had their heads bowed. The personality of Godhead whom Akrura saw had thousands of heads, thousands of hoods, and thousands of helmets. His blue garment and his fair complexion, as white as the filaments of a lotus stem, made him appear white, like Kailash mountain with its many peaks. Commentary. When Akrura submerged himself a second time in the Yamuna, he saw Krishna's plenary portion of Sri Vishnu, the worshipable deity of Akrura's own mantra. In order to fix his mind upon Vishnu, Akrura directly meditated upon the Lord's entourage and his form, from his toenails to the top of his head. At that time, Akrura declared, "Oh, my worshipable deity, the Lord of Vaikuntha has descended in the home of Vasudeva in Mathura." Paragraph. Akrura's Vaikuntha darshan of the Lord is described in the 13 verses of this chapter, 44 through 56. In verses 44 through 45, it is described, Anantashesha described the expansion of Balaram, who is as white as and towering as Mount Kailash, with its peaks of snow, and has thousands of hoods and crowns. When Akrura went into the Jamuna a second time, he saw Shesha and Vaikuntha. This is in accordance with Sridhar Swami's comments on Srimad Bhagavatam 10:28-16, which reads, exalted individual souls, jivas, into whom Lord Janardana enters with a portion of his knowledge potency, Sambit Shakti, and other potencies are called Avesha. Shesha, Narada, and the four Kumaras are examples of them in Vaikuntha. They were seen by Akrura. Then there's another reference. This is now Uddhava. Krishna's in Mathura. He's feeling separation from the residents of Braja. He knows what they're feeling. And he's contemplating, if I go back, then the remaining demons on earth will know I have affection for the Brijvasis and they'll go harass them. So I can't go back. But what to do? like he's perplexed. And just at that moment, Uddhava comes. So Uddhava carried a message. So Uddhava's gone to Vrindavan from Mathura. Text 54 of chapter 47. Uddhava remained there for several months, dispelling the gopis' sorrow by chanting the topics of Lord Krishna's pastimes. Thus he brought joy to all the people of Gokula. And some portion of the commentary that relates to this. The external meaning that the gopis recognized their own souls, Atmanam, as one with the transcendental Lord, the Supersoul, is simply a meaning to bewilder the asuras. This is not the real meaning. Indeed, the scriptural passage is just like the Mohini incarnation in its effect. For the Prema Bhakta, oneness of the Lord, and the jiva is insipid, meaning tasteless. What to speak of how repulsive it would be for the gopis, who are the crushed jewels of all unalloyed pure devotees, to think such a thing. Indeed, Sridhar Swami, who knows best the purport of advanced scriptures, has stated, quote, any person who has become mad with bliss by sporting in the nectarian ocean of topics of Krishna thinks of the four goals of human life as insignificant as a blade of grass. Paragraph. It can be seen that even the most potent knowledge of the soul, Atma Jnana, can never cover one who has fully developed Krishna Prema. When Vasudeva and Arjuna saw the Maha Ishvara aspect or supreme opulence of Krishna, so Vasudeva saw, Arjuna saw the supreme opulence of Krishna, their parental and friendly relationships, respectively, became covered by Dasya Bhakti. What's that? Devotion in the mood of servitude. But not by Brahmagyan or knowledge of Brahman. Clear? Aishvarya is not the same as Brahman. So some persons are attracted. The devotees, they're not. They're attracted by his opulence, his Aishvarya features. So it has been seen that the Brajvasis were merged in Brahmagyan. That's what this text 16. But this was only to show their distaste for knowledge of Brahman. Then he quotes the verse. Krishna brought the Brajvasis to the lake of Brahman, merged them in it, and then brought them out. Quotes the Sanskrit. The word cha, udrita, brought them out or delivered them, is specifically used in this text. Just as living entities are delivered from the ocean of samsara, the inhabitants of Braj were delivered from the repulsive Brahman. Furthermore, if the gopis had developed monistic Atmagyan, realization of the soul as one with Brahman, then they would not have spoken to Balaram with such unsettled minds as they did when he later returned to Braja. Part of this started about a month and a half ago, where someone was asking, can you give descriptions of the kingdom of God? So we read, the four Kumaras go to the gates of Vaikuntha, because that, is beyond heaven. And the distinction in the West, at least, there's no distinction between heaven and kingdom of God. There's no clarity at all. But the Vedas have. So what's Vaikuntha like? And after Vaikuntha, then what about Ayodhya? And after Ayodhya, what about Goloka? Or went to Dwarka? Going to speak of Braja. So these refinements are available in Vedic literatures, particularly Srimad Bhagavatam, but other literatures. And experiencing it, and then with refinement of experiencing it, and the way that the Brajvasis experience it, the way they experience Krishna's pastime, the way they experience Krishna's opulence, the way they experience what they experience. This is the topic, because it's, it's, in one sense, it's kind of odd. The Brajvasis want to see Krishna's abode when they're in it. In part because of their humility and simplicity, and in part because they don't consider him, they can't hold on to the idea that he's the personality of Godhead. Whereas going out from Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, Ayodhya, Vaikuntha, it becomes more and more the Lord. And in Vrindavan, they have some inkling, but their love is so strong, it just the curtain opens and it closes and they forget it. The acharyas give this example like a dream. When you're in the dream, it experiences like it's real, and then the dream's over. You may have some lingering remembrance, but quickly it's forgotten. Good dreams or bad dreams. So what's it like in Vrindavan, Krishna's abode? What's it like in heaven? What's it, each of these, so we're getting very refined explanations of what it's like. Of course, it's notional, because we're way down here consciousness-wise, and this is way up there consciousness-wise. But the sound vibration carries us there. It cleanses and it attracts. So at least we're being given a picture. And through sound we can more than just get a picture, we can go there. Cleansing and attraction. And have a good GPS to get you there. One time, we were going to somebody's home in Houston. The GPS was taking us in a loop. And then another time we're going to the same home, the GPS kept taking us in a loop. But there's nothing like that here. This is a GPS that takes you. No, our coverings may be such that we're kind of thick and it takes a while to and you lose the signal. But it'll take you there. The Bhagavatam, Lord Chaitanya wants to take us there to Braja Prem. The Bhagavatam wants to take us there. Our acharyas want to take us there. They're there, and they're attracting the hearts and the minds and giving these very elevated, refined understandings that are way over our head. But we're getting a picture of what it's like. And it gives impetus to want to get there. Not just like, a dreamy love of God idea. We're getting like a real focused, close picture what it looks like, and stimulations of the feelings of the residents of Vrindavan in different ways. And reminding us again and again of their exalted nature. Like specifically, this revealing of the Goloka, it's not, they're attracted to Brahman. It's reminding them of how insignificant Brahman realization is compared to the happiness of we'll see the next verse. They're going to see the form of Krishna and themselves in Goloka. And they're thrilled. Like they know that's where we're going. That's his abode, and we're there. We're going to be there. But it's the uppercut lila that one can't see unless Krishna shows it. And there at the uppercut lila, looking at the uppercut lila, it's like, wow. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion.
Guru Maharaj, you mentioned about effort and mercy.
Yeah.
So, some argue that it's with effort you get the mercy, so you don't need to worry about mercy. When mercy will come with just the effort. Are they both need to come?
I want to go use the bathroom. Which way?
Bring it a little closer instead of watching everything. No, I have the picture. Only you can see only this part instead of watching the whole staircase and the sofa and everything. Again, only you can see closer. Closer is better when you watch.
The sun moved. So the question is, if we just make effort, mercy will come. But I spoke about effort and mercy are required, not just well, in chapter 9 of Canto 10, the main focus, one of the main focuses when Mother Yasoda is trying to bind Krishna is effort doesn't work. It's her devotion that Krishna withdrew the potencies that were preventing her from binding him so she could bind him. So that's the mercy. Kripa is specifically Kripa Shakti. Krishna exhibited his Kripa Shakti. So now, he's not obliged because we make effort. Who else can bind Krishna but Mother Jasoda? Or if someone else can bind Krishna besides Mother Jasoda, it's dependent upon his mercy. You know, let's look at Putana being delivered. What effort?
Cause mercy. Cause there's mercy.
Well, she did a little something. The acharyas say she wear a sari. She wore devotional attire. She dressed like a devotee. That's it. So what prompted Krishna to show his mercy? Well, he says he's merciful. She came in a service of Mother, and look what he did. So, those who are making effort are very clear. My effort alone is not enough. I require mercy. Let's take the example of controlling the mind when chanting japa. Effort alone is enough. No way, my effort alone is not enough. Anyone who seriously tries to control the mind when chanting, effort alone is not enough. Not enough. I rest my case. You have something.
One is Krishna's kingdom, and Krishna's pastimes are transcendental.
Krishna's pastime what?
Are transcendental.
They're transcendental.
So there's no effect or influence of time on Krishna.
There's no influence of time on Krishna.
Yeah. How do we see that Krishna is growing? Because he's Navayavanamcha, but we see his 2-year-old pastime, 3-year-old pastime, and 4-year-old pastime. But he's always Navayavanam, he's always youth. So, like when we go to Goloka, it's like he has different abodes for
Two things. Your question has two parts. He's not influenced by time, and yet he shows stages of life as if those who are influenced by time show stages of life. And it's reciprocation. What it is, what that apparent growing or showing different ages is reciprocation with the love of his devotees. And Krishna enjoying, because Krishna is enjoying is reciprocating with his devotees. So it's simply a manifestation of his Yogamaya potency to apparently grow, or apparently to have experiences that are as if time is passing, although time is not passing. Nitya Lila means there's no time passing. Specifically, the language used by our acharyas is there's no deterioration, because time destroys. There's no influence of time, that is, nothing is destroyed. So, for us, let's say, the baby bodies we once had, they're no longer around. But Krishna can, he's not limited like that by time, and time which destroys things. So, and then the second part of your question is, in Goloka, are there different departments, or he does this in this place, he does that in that place, and not exactly like that. something that may help understand your thought process is Narada's visit to Dwarka. When Narada visited Dwarka, he saw Krishna doing simultaneously different things at different places at different times of the day simultaneously. So time is quite flexible. And it's not even that there's a time of day, because it is eternal. That's, time, it's a fascinating topic. Time traditionally is the movement of the sun, day and night. And in different increments of the day, then there's, according to different cultures or different ways of measuring or identifying, but it's just the movement of the sun. In the Vedas, it's the smallest unit of time as we know it is the sun passing over one atom. But it's the movement of the sun. And in the spiritual world, there's no need of sunlight, moonlight, electricity. But there's a sun because there's day and night. It's just for pastime purposes. Different times of the day, different exchanges of love with different associates of Krishna during different times of the day. Lifting of Govardhan Hill. They didn't eat, they didn't sleep, they didn't drink water, they didn't anything. That's not human. That's not, people have bodies, you can't do that. They didn't do that. But so it's a time stopped. But he was doing things during those 7 days, and they were doing things during those 7 days. So it's very flexible. And in the spiritual world, in Goloka, or are there different, so he just exhibits different pastimes, and how it works. Because here, when it says Prakat Lila, there's years, like is described. The 1 year that passed when Krishna had manifested himself as calves and cowherd boys. The boys grew. Then it specifically commented, the ones that were put in the cave, they didn't have any sense of passage of time, although they were there for a year, and they didn't eat or do anything for a year. Did they get lonely, or did they get hungry, or what happened for a whole year? But it was Yogamaya, and then they looked 1 year older when they came out of the cave. Krishna brought them out of the cave. Doesn't say how that happened or anything, but then they're back in the place where they're having lunch. And Krishna comes and says, "Oh, you're so attached to us, you've been only away for a moment. Sit down and finish lunch." Like nothing happened. So it's our clever answer is just Yogamaya. And that kind of whitewashes everything. Everything inexplicable just becomes, it's Yogamaya, it's pastime. So he doesn't need to have different places. It's inconceivable. I've never had anybody ask that question. It's like a very thought-provoking question.
Because I was thinking okay, you need to establish a relationship with Krishna. So I'm thinking okay, I want to be a servant of Mother Yashoda. So I won't be able to see Krishna's other pastimes. I'm only going to be there in that.
No, it's not like that. You'll have the assistance. This is my simple understanding. That is, the assistant to Mother Yashoda is you take on the mood. And take on the mood means motherly affection. And then there's different. So it's not like the residents of Vrindavan aren't aware of Krishna's other pastimes in Vrindavan. Now, in the spiritual world, it's not only Vrindavan, but there's Dwarka and Mathura. Now, how does that work? Because there's no Kamsa. And Akrura has to come and take Krishna to Mathura. So I don't know how it works. But there's these different pastimes, and they're feeling separation from Krishna when he's not in Vrindavan. But he's always in Vrindavan because he's always in their hearts. There's so many mysteries. That's what was the message last night. So many mysteries. And so what's it, if you or somebody, let's say Putana became a maidservant of Mother Yasoda, what's she going to do there? Is she going to miss out on the other pastimes besides what Mother Yasoda does? She has this mood. Like the gopis, they have the mood of Radha. They're expansions of her. And so they're not, missing out on other pastimes. But they have their particular mood to assist Radha in her loving relation with Krishna. So similarly, Vatsalya personalities assist Mother Yasoda, and they may do some of the things. Yeah.
So the mercy part is up to Krishna, but does in a prayerful mood, like in a prayer.
Yeah, you don't need to pray. You don't need to pray for His mercy because He's merciful, but we pray for His mercy because we want His mercy. It's not like we don't pray, well, I won't give you my mercy, so you got to pray for my mercy there, otherwise, I'm stingy. Not like that. It's the mood of love. We pray for mercy, knowing He's merciful. We're feeling ourselves dependent because we are. We're dependent on His mercy. Like that. Okay?
We have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First one is from Amol Bakshi Prabhu.
Okay.
This pastime specifically mentions gopas. Do the gopis already perceive the spiritual world through Aprakat Leela and do not need this revelation?
No. It's specifically mentioning gopas because they're the ones. When Nanda came back from Akrura's abode, he shared with the gopas. And the gopas had a little gopa conference. And then they were desiring, so he showed the gopas. It's just focusing on them. At different times, different pastimes are focusing. It's not to say, but unless it's revealed, we don't know what the gopis saw or didn't see. Specifically, this pastime is with the gopas, because Nanda came back and shared with him what his experience was. There may be, a zillion other pastimes that are not in the Bhagavatam, but, how would we know? Unless it's disclosed by our acharyas. Okay?
Another question. What should be a devotee's mood? Is the right thing to just strive but not aspire for any mercy? And ultimately, is it up to Krishna to make that decision for endowing His mercy?
The answer to the second question is everything is up to Krishna, but the first question is effort and mercy, same topic. And when one makes extra effort, one realizes my effort alone is not enough. And so the dependence upon mercy gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger as the effort gets stronger and stronger. That's because both are elements of bhakti. Not only one or only the other. Okay. Is that it?
We have three more.
Three more, okay.
This one's from Sanchari Dasi. She asks, I've heard that in order for a devotee to gain access to Goloka, they have to first experience or be within Krishna's pastimes as they are manifesting in the material world.
Yes, that's right.
That is the immediate destination after they pass. Is this like a final exam for the soul before entering Goloka?
No, it's not. The exam has already been passed. It's apprenticeship. The Ragatmika Bhaktas are training up. The Nitya Siddha Bhaktas are training up. The Sadhana Siddha Bhaktas. No, Siddha means Siddha. They've achieved perfection and now they're just being apprenticed. Here's how you do your service. Here's the mood, and so forth.
She also continues, I'm also thinking of the story of the Brahmanas and their wives. The wives dedicated themselves to Krishna and attained the spiritual world, but the Brahmanas, to my understanding, did not. Were all these personalities those souls who are going through this last stage before entering the spiritual Dham? If so, what happened to the Brahmanas?
They became bhaktas by the mercy of their wives. They were proud of their varna, and pride blocks the heart, so they couldn't see because their hearts were blocked. But then they recognized that their wives' hearts were not blocked, and they were feeling themselves very fortunate to be married to such qualified wives. So by the bhakti of their wives, they became bhaktas. They overcame their pride.
And then one last question from Prakash Govindan. I am astonished to learn that Gokula has even more sweetness, Madhurya, than Goloka, even though Gokula is in the material world and Goloka is in the spiritual world. 1. Could you please explain how this should be understood?
Through sound, that's how. I mean, here's 2 examples. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Krishna's pastimes have 2 categories, Nitya Lila and Naimatika Lila. Naimatika is translated as occasional pastimes. So in the occasional pastimes, it includes things like Krishna's birth, so there's no birth in Goloka, but in Gokula there's birth. That's very merciful. There's the mood in Goloka, Krishna's our son, but there's no birth pastime. So it's added sweetness because there's actually the pastime. And another example is the killing of demons. There's no demons in Goloka. There's a mood. Oh, here comes Ristasura. And then, in his Gokula pastimes, or worldly, not his manifest pastimes in this world, there's actually demons. And so what everybody goes through and what Krishna does and what happens afterwards, like, the Kaliya serpent, it's sweeter than where there isn't such an exchange. And another sweetness is when he manifests his pastimes. This goes back to Canto 1, Chapter 1, where what's the purpose of the Lord's appearing in this world? And there's different places, different answer, but it's to deliver the elevated souls and to attract the hearts and the minds of those that aren't so elevated. So, there's a sweetness in Krishna's extending himself in that way to the elevated souls and those that aren't. Those are some features of increased sweetness.
And there's a second part.
Yes.
Doesn't this make Gokula even more desirable than
Yes.
Goloka
Yeah.
to attain for a living entity?
Yeah. Get on board. Become a Nitya Siddha. Get trained up by the Yupimi, a sadhana Siddha. That's not so easy, no matter how much effort you make. Anything? You have anything?
Just the last, the sadhana siddha continue and more serious, they become nitya siddha.
You don't become Nitya Siddha, you become the associate of the Nitya Siddhas. Is that clear?
Say it again.
Supposing, so you and I work like anything to become pure devotees. And the bell rings, we become pure devotees. So that's a sadhana siddha. So it's not over, like Sanchari's question. We get to get the association of the Nitya Siddha devotees in Krishna's pastime somewhere. Does that address your question?
So is it like yesterday, Maharaj, you were saying in the class about Drona and
Dara.
Dara. So is it like they are Nitya Siddhas?
No. They're expansions, partial, minute, tiny expansions. As Krishna can expand, Nanda and Yasoda expanded. As Radharani expands. And so many gopis. But they're involved with her pastimes here. In this case, under the commentary that we read says, Narayana instructed Nanda and Yasoda, because he's their worshipable deity in pastime. He instructed them, expand yourselves. Your expansions can reside in the heavenly realm. So they're little minute expansions of. Thinking otherwise, thinking that, we're expansions of Nanda and Yasoda. Pretty good, huh? They're thinking as Vasus. And they were childless, so they prayed to Brahma, please benedict us so we can have the Supreme Lord as our son. He smiled. So? That answer your question?
So I was just comparing, that means Vasudeva and Devaki are like Sadhaka Siddhas because they were they wanted...
This question came up last night, and his question was, do they have a place in Goloka? Are they in Mathura in the spiritual world, eternally? Are they eternally in that role, or did they become like that? And the answer I gave is I haven't read anything, so I can't say. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki?
Yeah.
Right.